Working as a nurse, especially in long-term care, you meet so many people. Each one has a story etched onto their face, hidden in the lines around their eyes, whispered in the quiet moments. Most stories drift by, like clouds on a summer day. But some stay with you. They burrow into your heart and change how you see things. Mr. Harrison, his story wasn't just one I heard, it was one I somehow became a part of, in a way I never could have imagined. My name is Sarah, and I've been a nurse for about 10 years now. I work at a quiet facility just outside of town. It's the kind of place where families bring their loved ones when they need more help than can be given at home. It's filled with routine, medication rounds, changing linens, helping with meals, listening. Oh, the listening. Sometimes, that's the most important part of the job. Mr. Arthur Harrison arrived on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. He looked frail, small in his wheelchair, his eyes scanning the hallway with a sort of guarded stillness. The paperwork said he was 89, a decorated veteran from the Second World War, a widower with no close family left nearby. He was quiet, painfully quiet. In the beginning, he barely spoke a word, just polite nods, murmured thank yous. He'd sit by his window for hours, looking out at the garden, but not really seeing it, He seemed lost in a world far away, a world long gone. There was a sadness about him, a deep well of unspoken things, that made my heart ache a little whenever I went into his room. Room 3B. One thing I noticed almost immediately was the letter. It was tucked into the inner pocket of the old tweed jacket he always wore, even indoors. The envelope was yellowed with age, soft at the corners, clearly handled countless times. Sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, I'd see him pull it out just slightly, his thumb tracing the faded address, before tucking it quickly away again, like a precious, painful secret. Curiosity is natural, I suppose. I wondered what was inside. Who was it from? What did it say that made him keep it so close after all these years? But you learn respect in this job. You learn boundaries. His past was his own, held tight in that worn envelope. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I made it my quiet mission to try and draw Mr. Harrison out, just a little. I'd talk about the weather, the birds and the garden feeders I'd helped set up, sometimes even about my own day, just filling the silence. Slowly, very slowly, he began to respond. A small smile here, a question about the type of bird there. One afternoon, I brought in some freshly baked cookies, simple oatmeal raisin. His eyes lit up, just for a second. Eleanor used to make these, he murmured, his voice thick with memory. She liked raisins. It was the first time he'd mentioned a name from his past. Eleanor. A wife? A sweetheart. I didn't push, I just smiled and said, they're my grandmother's recipe. Her name was Eleanor too, actually. He looked at me then, a long, searching look that felt heavier than usual. Is that so? He whispered, then fell silent again, nibbling on the cookie, as if tasting a memory. That little exchange felt like progress, a tiny crack in the wall he kept around himself. After that he seemed a bit more present. He'd ask about my day, occasionally share a fragment of a memory, vague things about basic training, the cold winters during the war, the long journey home. But mostly, he remained locked in his quiet world, and always the letter remained close. His health was fragile. We all knew his time here wasn't unlimited. There were good days and bad days. On the bad days, he seemed weaker, more distant. He'd clutch the letter tighter, his knuckles white. Sometimes I'd find him asleep in his chair, his hand protectively covering his jacket pocket. One particularly gray morning, about 6 months after he arrived, I went in for his routine check. He looked exhausted, his breathing shallow. He didn't respond much, just watched me with those tired, ancient eyes. As I was adjusting his pillows, his thin, cool hand reached out and gripped my arm. It startled me. His touch was surprisingly strong, urgent. Sarah, he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. Yes, Mr. Harrison, do you need something? Are you uncomfortable? I asked gently, leaning closer. His eyes searched my face. There was fear there, but also something else. Resolve? Resignation. He fumbled with his jacket pocket, his fingers trembling. Slowly, painstakingly, he drew out the worn letter. The envelope felt almost like cloth, softened by decades of touch. He held it out to me. My heart started pounding. Why me? Why now? I hesitated. Mr. Harrison, are you sure? He nodded, his eyes pleading. Need you to read it, he whispered, the effort costing him. Please, read it. I asked, confused. Now, yes, now. He paused, taking a shaky breath. I made a promise, long ago, to keep it safe. But, I need someone else to know. Before, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I looked down at the fragile envelope in my hand. The address was faded, written in beautiful, old-fashioned cursive script. It was addressed to Private Arthur Harrison, followed by an APO address I didn't recognize. The return address section was blank. The postmark was blurred, but I could just make out the year 1944. My hands trembled slightly as I carefully slid my finger under the flap. It wasn't sealed. It had clearly been opened and refolded many times. I pulled out a single folded sheet of thin, almost translucent paper. The same elegant handwriting covered the page. I sat down on the chair beside his bed, my pulse echoing in my ears. Mr. Harrison watched me, his eyes never leaving my face. I took a deep breath and began to read aloud, softly, so only he could hear. My dearest Arthur, it began. The words that followed were simple, heartfelt, full of longing, worry, and love. The writer spoke of home, of waiting, of praying for his safety on the front lines somewhere far away in Europe. She wrote about missing his laugh, the way he looked at her, the plans they had whispered about for after the war. It was a beautiful, aching love letter from a woman desperately hoping for her soldier to come home. She mentioned small things, a dance they'd shared under the stars, a favorite song on the radio, walks by the old oak tree in the town square. She wrote about the day he left, the coldness of the train station, the brave face she tried to keep. Each word painted a vivid picture of love suspended by war, fragile yet fierce. I read on, my voice catching sometimes. It felt incredibly intimate, like I was intruding on a sacred private moment stretching across 70 years. Mr. Harrison listened, tears silently tracking paths down his wrinkled cheeks. He didn't make a sound, just watched me, his expression a mixture of pain and peace. Then I reached the end of the letter, the closing lines. Promise me you'll come back, Arthur. Promise me. Our little spot by the river waits for us. Remember, where you gave me the locket? It's still safe. I wear it always, waiting for you, forever and always. Your Ellie. Ellie, not Eleanor. Ellie. My breath caught in my throat. My heart seemed to stop. Ellie. My grandmother's name was Eleanor, but my grandfather, he never called her Eleanor, ever. To him, and to all of us in the family she was always Ellie. And the locket. My grandmother Ellie had a locket, a small silver heart-shaped locket. She wore it every single day of her life. She said her first love gave it to her before he went away, but she never elaborated. We always just assumed it was my grandfather. She was already wearing it when she met him after the war. She'd lost touch with the first boy, she once told my mom vaguely. Things got complicated. She never spoke his name. My head swam. I looked down at the signature again. Your Ellie. Then I looked at the date, 1944. My grandmother would have been about 18 then, before she met my grandfather, before my mother was born, before I existed. The room tilted. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Could it be? Could this quiet, frail man in room 3 be this Mr. Arthur Harrison? Could he be the boy who gave my grandmother Ellie her most treasured possession, the first love she never spoke of? My hands were shaking now. I looked from the letter to Mr. Harrison. His eyes were closed, but the tears still flowed. Mr. Harrison, I whispered, my voice trembling. Arthur. His eyes slowly opened. They focused on me, filled with a deep, ancient sadness, but also a strange clarity. My grandmother. I started, barely able to form the words. Her name was Eleanor, but we all called her Ellie. His breath hitched. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. Surprise, recognition, and the locket, I continued, my voice thick with emotion. She had a silver heart-shaped locket. She wore it every single day. She told my mom once that her first love gave it to her, before he went to war. Mr. Harrison stared at me. The silence stretched, filled only by the sound of his shallow breathing, and the frantic pounding of my own heart. It felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Then, very slowly, a single tear escaped his other eye, tracing a new path. A faint, heart-wrenching smile touched his lips. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile of memory, of pain, of a lifetime of quiet holding on. Ellie, he breathed, the name a fragile whisper on his lips. My Ellie. I was speechless, absolutely, utterly speechless. My mind couldn't grasp it. 70 years. 70 years this man had carried this letter, carried this love, this memory of my grandmother. Did he know she married someone else? Did he know what happened to her? She waited, he murmured, his eyes drifting towards the window, as if seeing the past. But I was wounded. Badly. Hospital for a long time. By the time I got back, things had changed. Letters stopped. His voice faded. My own eyes filled with tears. My grandmother Ellie had passed away 5 years ago. She never knew Arthur came back. Maybe she thought he hadn't survived the war, or maybe, as she once vaguely hinted, things just got too complicated. Life moved on. She met my grandfather, fell in love again, built a family, lived a full life, but she kept the locket, always. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I reached out and gently took his hand. It felt so frail. She passed away, Mr. Harrison, I said softly. About 5 years ago. She lived a good life. She was happy. I wasn't sure if I was saying it for him, or for myself, or for Ellie. He nodded slowly, his eyes closed again. Good, he whispered. That's good. We sat there in silence for a long time, just me holding his hand, the worn letter resting on the blanket between us. The air felt thick with unspoken history, with paths not taken, with love that endured despite time and distance and silence. I finally understood the depth of sadness in his eyes, the reason he kept that letter so close. It wasn't just a memory, it was a connection, a tangible piece of a love that shaped his entire life, a promise kept in his heart for over 70 years. And now, somehow, in the last days of his life, that connection had found its way back, through me, her granddaughter. It felt like closing a circle I never even knew existed. Later that day, Mr. Harrison slipped peacefully away in his sleep. When the charge nurse and I were preparing his room afterwards, I gently took the letter. It felt wrong to leave it with his belongings, to be packed away impersonally. It felt like it belonged somewhere else now. I asked my manager if I could keep it, explaining vaguely that it had personal significance. She understood. Nurses often see things, feel connections, that others don't. That evening, I went home and sat in my quiet living room. I opened the letter again, and read it slowly, imagining my young grandmother, full of hope and fear, writing these words. I thought about Arthur, carrying her love with him through the horrors of war, and the long quiet decades that followed. I took out my own jewelry box. Inside, nestled on velvet, was the small silver heart-shaped locket. My mother gave it to me after Grandma Ellie passed. I picked it up. It felt warm in my hand, infused with a history I now understood so much better. Mr. Harrison didn't just leave me speechless that day. He left me with a profound sense of connection to the past, to my own family history, and to the incredible resilience of the human heart. He reminded me that behind every quiet face, there's a universe of experience, of love, of loss, of stories waiting to be heard, or sometimes, just to be known. His story, and Ellie's story, held within that fragile worn letter, is one I will never ever forget. It stays with me, a quiet reminder, that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary connections can be found, sometimes when, and where, you least expect them. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. It's moments like these that remind us how deeply connected we all are, even across generations. If this story touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up by hitting the like button. Share your thoughts, or perhaps a story of an unexpected connection you've experienced in the comments below. I love reading them, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more stories like this one. Sharing this video also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you again for being here. Until next time.